For decades, George Carroll was just another name on a long list of missing persons, a cold case. No body, no crime scene, no answers. His story was a quiet mystery, a blank space where a person used to be. Then, in 2025, everything changed. Investigators returned to a quiet, unassuming home on Long Island, a place that had been searched before, years ago. But this time, they weren't just looking around. They were looking down. Beneath the floor, what they found in the dark earth of the basement reopened a mystery that many believed would never be solved. This isn't just a story about a disappearance. It's about the heavy weight of silence, the secrets a family can keep, and a question that simply refuses to go away. How could a man remain hidden for so long, inside his very own home? George Carroll lived what seemed to be a quiet, predictable life on Long Island. To his family and the few friends he had, he was known as a private and reserved man. There were no public signs of trouble in his life, no known criminal connections, no major debts, no obvious reason for him to just up and vanish. He wasn't the type to cause a scene or draw attention to himself. Then, one day, he was gone. At first, his absence didn't set off major alarm bells. Adults have the right to leave. People decide to start over somewhere new all the time. But the days stretched into weeks, and the weeks turned into years. And George Carroll never came back. His quiet life had ended with an even quieter disappearance, leaving behind only questions and a lingering sense of unease. The answer, it turned out, was far closer and darker than anyone could have imagined. When George Carroll was officially reported missing, the initial investigation followed a standard, frustratingly empty path. Police searched for the obvious explanations. They looked for any sign of a struggle or forced entry at his home, but found none. They searched for an abandoned vehicle, a last known sighting, anything to build a timeline on, but there was nothing. His home was examined, the neighborhood was canvassed, friends and family were questioned. The result was always the same, a dead end. Slowly but surely, the investigation went cold. Over time, George Carroll became just another name on a growing list of unresolved disappearances, a statistical ghost in a filing cabinet. The system had done what it could, but without any new information, there was nowhere else to go. The case was, for all intents and purposes, closed. As the years passed, the case faded almost completely from public attention. Life moved on. Family members, faced with the unending ambiguity of a missing loved one, tried to find their own ways to cope and continue. Neighbors eventually stopped asking questions. The police records gathered dust in an archive room. Of course, there were rumors, as there always are in these kinds of cases. Whispers of family conflict floated around town. Some people speculated he had run off voluntarily, maybe with a secret lover or to escape some unknown trouble. But none of it could ever be proven. Rumors and speculation are not evidence. And without evidence, there was nothing for law enforcement to pursue. George Carroll's story was trapped in a state of permanent uncertainty. He was gone, but the reason why was a complete mystery, locked away by time and silence. For decades, it seemed destined to stay that way. Like many long unsolved cases, the disappearance of George Carroll attracted its share of unconventional leads. Over the years, psychics and amateur sleuths would occasionally contact the police, claiming they had a vision or a feeling about what had happened. Some of these tips were vague, pointing to large bodies of water or remote wooded areas. Investigators, bound by protocol and often facing a lack of any credible leads, would sometimes follow up on these tips, however unlikely they seemed. They would recheck locations or re-interview people based on these psychic hunches, but each and every time, it led nowhere. The tips were either too generic to be useful or simply incorrect. To professional law enforcement, The case remained exactly where it had always been, unresolved, unproven, and deeply, frustratingly unsolved. The paranormal leads only added another layer of strange folklore to a case that was already starved for facts. Decades after George vanished, something unexpected happened. A true crime documentary production decided to revisit the cold case. This new attention breathed life back into the dormant investigation. The filmmakers dug into old files, re-examining police reports and witness statements with fresh eyes. They conducted new interviews, and details that were once overlooked or dismissed were suddenly questioned again. It created enough pressure and curiosity that it forced investigators to look back not at new leads, but at what they thought they already knew. They decided to reevaluate the original scene of the disappearance, George Carroll's former home on Long Island, a place that had been searched at the very beginning, but perhaps not thoroughly enough. The documentary had posed a question that now demanded an answer. Could something have been missed? The house was just as quiet and ordinary as it had been for decades. It had stood there, unremarkable, holding its secrets within its walls. But this time, when investigators returned, they had a different focus. They weren't just looking in closets or under furniture. They were going to the basement. Their attention was on the foundation of the house itself. The solid concrete floor, the packed earth beneath it. Using ground-penetrating radar, a technology that wasn't widely available during the original search, they scanned the basement floor. And then, the equipment signaled an anomaly, an inconsistency in the ground beneath the concrete. With a heavy sense of anticipation, they began to dig. And there, buried in the cold, dark soil, they found something that no one had expected to find after all this time. Human remains, buried deep beneath the basement floor of the missing man's own home. The discovery was shocking, but the confirmation was heartbreaking. Forensic testing was conducted, and the results confirmed what investigators and the family had feared. The remains belonged to George Carroll. After decades of agonizing questions, the missing man had finally been found. He had been there the entire time, just a few feet beneath the surface of his own home. But this monumental discovery only answered one question: where was George? In its place, it raised a dozen more, each one more disturbing than the last. The mystery wasn't over. It had just entered a new, much darker chapter. The focus shifted from a missing person case to a potential homicide investigation. If George Carroll was buried beneath his house all along, investigators were now faced with a horrifying set of questions. Who put him there? When did it happen? And perhaps the most chilling question of all, how did no one notice? The basement was part of the house. Someone had to have been there. Someone had to have poured the concrete. Was this a crime meticulously hidden by a killer, or a terrible tragedy concealed by years of silence and fear? Investigators began to look closely at who had access to the home at the time of the disappearance. The circle of potential knowledge suddenly became very, very small. As of now, no charges have been officially announced, and authorities are keeping many details of the ongoing investigation private. The discovery of the body has cracked the case wide open, but the full story of what happened in that basement remains buried, even with the discovery of George Carroll's body. The most critical questions remain unanswered, hanging heavy in the air. First and foremost, was foul play involved? All signs point to it, but proving it is another matter entirely. Was his death intentional, or could it have been a tragic accident that someone tried to cover up? Who had access to that basement, and the means to bury a body there? Family? A visitor? And why did it take decades for anyone to search beneath the concrete floor? These are the questions that now define the final chapter of this long and tragic case. Finding the truth is the real challenge. George Carroll was missing for decades. He was searched for, talked about, and remembered by those who knew him. All the while, He lay in a place he knew better than anyone, his own home, undiscovered and unnoticed. The most important answers about his final moments remain just out of reach, locked in the past. Thanks for watching. If you found this story compelling, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into cases like this one.